I'm back. That took quite a while, and that was annoying. And honestly, I really probably didn't need to do that. Yeah, I want to do something. I want to play with my old group. Let me show you my old team. It consisted of Viola, a monk in other words, a princess in the front, and everyone else in the back. Those being... Luvobi is actually in the front. And then Mara. That's correct. Yeah, Luvobi at the front. Yeah, everyone's well equipped. All that's left now is the forge, and I feel like I can start recording at this point. There you go. I have a feeling this team will still be really strong. And first things first, I want to get some items. Three more of these. Three of these will do. Two nectars, why not? And 2 tents. I'll buy 2 of these. I want to know how if their rate of affliction is a lot more. So apparently it is supposed to be a lot more. Dang, I need a lot of small shells. Right, so that hasn't changed. So it looks like Luvobi's gonna be mostly for attacking still. I shall enchant this with electricity and poison. Alright, let me see everyone else's. I'll register this. Ia, Alma, Geosera, Ethlid. It's so annoying that you can only forge the equipment that's either in your inventory or equipped by a party member. The Makir can stay blind. Enchanting this with an element might be good. It will get more elements and stronger weapons soon, so... I don't think I'll be using Iask anyway at the moment. she'll be fine as is. I still need to. I only have so much time, and you don't really need to be super powerful. Even in insane difficulty, as it turns out. So lastly, we got V3. Just V3, actually. Actually, I don't think V3 can enchant her weapon. Yeah, the flame rifle stuck with all the flames. Oh yeah, the classic team. Well, I shouldn't say classic because I'm still playing through that file. I'm playing through two save files of this game and having a blast doing it. Maybe I should do the Oceanic quest. The Trade City Batavia thing. Okay. Sure. A wildling, huh? They'll obviously stay. I just realized. Yeah, let's listen to this song. I like this song. But you don't have much of a reason to listen to it. I need Avenger and Wolf Howl at level 3. I'll get Wolf Howl to level 3. I haven't used Umag in a while, and I definitely have never used Mayara before. Oh yo. This is really cool. Oh. It needs a whole lot to do to get though. Whoa. I mean, that's honestly useless because I really don't want my party members to die anyway, because the XP loss I really just don't want to deal with. So I don't think I'm ever gonna get that unless there's a... Gungnir. Yo. Ooh. I want bodyguard. Why not? Let's get parry. Oh, whoops, I'm out of skill points. I thought I had more. Ooh, that's actually really good. Or maybe it's always been like that, it's just because because the numbers were never specified. %. Cool. Oh, yo, it doesn't need TP either. Wow. Wow. Wow, armor piercer. Epic. And obviously we're getting both mastery level 3. And I did have all of the barrages back then. So I'm gonna have them back again. Because they're nice. And I think they're even nicer here. I think in the original they only dealt 50% damage. In here they still deal all the damage. Which makes sense because this class does not have a lot of TP. They changed these a lot. Armor Piercer is honestly really amazing sounding. She can benefit from having more TP. I'll go for 2. I don't really need heavy shot. Accuracy increase is kinda nice, I suppose. Blind yourself and all enemies. Oh, they nerfed it. I want to try ambush. Oh, you needed that for smoke grenade. Oh, I need ambush level 3 for that. The increase is very minor. You know, I'll get more TP. Which she can't take advantage of right now. Alright, let's do this. Let's try not bringing Veil. Let's see how well Mara can hold on her own, healing everyone. Ah, that's actually already good.
Pursuant to the 2015 commercial guidelines, which state that things not specifically permitted in the guidelines aren't allowed. Again, vague language makes for stricter terms. As such, sponsorships for in-person Minecraft events like LAN parties were ostensibly never permitted.
Of course it's monsters.
Now, at the very least,
oh, look at these guys, they're weird. Sea
7.
lobster and red
In-person
puffer.
Minecraft events cannot be marketed using Minecraft assets such as logos or fonts. Now, this is the same as the above, right? Ostensibly never previously allowed either. Not stated, it doesn't mean allowed. Quite the opposite is true. Complaint number 8. Servers with any content not suitable for 10-year-olds, whatever that may be, is no longer allowed. But this has always been the case. This exact same language exists in the 2015 EULA, identical to the 2023 EULA. The new EULA helpfully offers a bit more explanation. Instead of saying your content has to be suitable for the target audience, it is now for 10+.
Ah, so this is the line defense thing,
This new EULA
but they changed the wording.
Terrorism and explicit
It doesn't matter where in the line they are anymore. Where Umag is in the line
This
anymore.
doesn't mean it wasn't always still the case. We should welcome this change because it tells us directly where the line in the sand
Whoa,
is.
what the heck?
Instead of
Provoke
saying,
costs so much more now. What?
This kind of content was always off the chopping block. We are now only being told about it. What the EULA says and how it is enforced are two different things. Why hasn't it been enforced? Well, that's up to Mojang and Microsoft. Enforcement is expensive and tricky. Smaller
Let's
EULA
hope she's
violations
more
might
effective
simply be
then,
escaped
huh?
notice or not worth the cost.
Oh gosh.
Or maybe you have to read between the lines and understand that these
Oh, did she just
laws are meant
regenerate?
to protect the company from
Oh, that was thanks to Mara. Way to go.
Number 9. Fictional story writers are not allowed to include Minecraft brands or assets like fonts or images for Minecraft-related works. So this new clause is reworded, but power of the clause already exists.
Oh, look at that crow, holy shit.
It states in separate and rather unclear terms that Minecraft's logo or the word Minecraft or its assets or brand are not allowed to be used in books and other publications. In other words, this has likely also always been the case. Key
I'll try a
finishes
barrage.
off by using Mojang and Microsoft gaslighting, which is always nice, and then states that they've changed the EULA such that they can now change the guidelines whenever they like. That's supposed to be our responsibility to check, which, as you all know, has always
Alright, it
been
seems
the
to
case.
be way more guaranteed,
Always
huh?
will be the case. Of
Oh
course.
nice, even more
And
defense,
that's the whole
Diva.
list of complaints. My friends, this is 1984. This is Democracy Manifest. Having read the EULA with you and the usage guidelines, and having compared the old EULA and guidelines to the new ones, what do you think? I'll tell you what I think. It is completely unnecessary panic. Nothing in this EULA has substantively changed. The rules remain the same, they're just clearer now. Will enforcement be ramped up? This I can't say. But if enforcement is ramped up, it won't have anything to do with alleged new powers granted in the EULA or usage guidelines. I encourage you, my viewers, not to be swept away by tides of mob mentality. To take a moment and observe situations like this one with nuance and attention to detail. It takes a month to make a video like this one, debunking spur-of-the-moment passionate and angry complaints, but it only takes a second to make said complaints. May you, my new channel viewers, always seek the context before jumping on the bandwagon. Now, before we conclude, I want to make the case that the Minecraft EULA is actually quite the opposite of what commentators like you make it out to be. In fact, I think we are quite privileged to have such a degree of freedom when it comes to engagement with the Minecraft IP. Microsoft, for all of its faults, has done a tremendous job with Minecraft on the IP engagement side, and I don't think the Minecraft community understands how rare this truly is. In order to give you an idea of how lenient, not strict, but truly lenient the Minecraft EULA and guidelines are, let's take a quick look at a different EULA from a similar game in space. Minecraft
shit.
development guidelines combined are
Yo.
roughly 12 pages long with a fairly large font size.
Alright, at least now I know.
This is the terms of use agreement for Roblox. It is 33 pages long with tiny little font, tons of legal jargon and citations, all that good stuff. Minecraft very intentionally doesn't. This is Minecraft's EULA on what your content is and isn't. It's a pretty legally sound summary of the Microsoft Service Agreement concerning your content, which is itself rather generous. We don't own the original stuff you create, we own things that are derivatives of our own property. Single Minecraft block is ours, your hut is yours. What does Roblox say about
Oh no, the Ruby's dead.
The services contain various forms, functionality, software, and other interactive features that allow you to create, upload, submit, publish, display, generate, transmit, or otherwise make available /publish UGC of the services. For more information on these features, please also read Section 2 of the Creator Terms Guide. Some experiences allow for users of that experience to publish UGC within the experience. If you wish to separately publish UGC within an experience, hereby grant both Roblox and the Creator experience a worldwide perpetual royalty-free and irrevocable right and non-exclusive license to use and exploit the UGC in any manner or medium, etc. In other words, all your base are belong to us. If you make stuff on Roblox, ownership is complicated by law, and Roblox cannot just say your creations are theirs, but they make the most of it anyway, and certainly their user agreement gets no points for ease of readability. Minecraft is ESRB rated everyone in 10 plus and Pectin 7 plus. Roblox is also rated ESRB 10 plus and Pectin 7 plus. Minecraft's EULA is drafted in such a way that it can be understood even by a 6th grader. Roblox's EULA is drafted in such a way that it can barely be understood even by a lawyer. Minecraft is truly unique in this way, and for all its faults, we've never seen an IP the size of Minecraft handled with such openness and content creator friendliness. Microsoft has problems, sure, but with regards to Minecraft, it is a pioneer, and its handling of the franchise should be respected and not harangued. If this is how we treat those trying to do good for us, we are merely inflating the opposite. Minecraft is the most egalitarian intellectual property of its size. I can't think of another IP that has such a lenient, generous view attached to it. We Minecraft players are deeply spoiled by the amount of freedom we have to create and utilize different aspects of Minecraft for our own artistic expression, for our own commercial ventures. In being spoiled, however, I fear that we have also become privileged. The complaints I've seen surrounding the new Minecraft EULA are wholly without merit. The EULA is almost exactly the same as it used to be, and if anything, does have an enforcement-wise. It's not likely to be because of any substantial change in the end-user license agreement or usage guidelines. If you have any other complaints that I've not seen, bring them up in the comments. I'll see what I can clarify. Please also review the old 2017 EULA guidelines first. Link in the description and see if the answer might already be there. There's nothing dramatic about the new Minecraft on paper. We have made a monster out of a mere shadow. So is Minecraft's new EULA 1984. Is it Brave New World? Is it Fahrenheit 451 with a Handmaid's Tale for dessert? No. It turns out the new EULA is
So
just
Mara does need to be at high health in order to be able to heal. That's good.
Yozora Oi for her help on the video's intro. You can check out Yozora's Twitch channel at twitch.tv/yozoraoi or by going to yozoraoi.live. I've been your host, Umi with a call. Thank you for tuning in to the channel.
Hey, when she can, she really does it well.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Mooney. This here's Mooney's Minecraft Let's Play episode 200,005. Today we're going to be planting some sheep and some rocks.
Oh my god. Ooh. Ooh. Big. Huge. Nice. And a Marita, what? Still confused. Keep it that way. Damn, look at all those. No? Alright, cool. They're weak to physical, so let's just attack and hope for the best. Yes! Okay, Mr. Birdman. You've proven not just to us, you've proven to us, and I'm sure everyone else can see it. Wildlings are indeed very powerful. Oh, you came back in one piece. You must have defeated that swarm of monsters. Thanks to you, the trader along the Batavia Sea can flourish again, free of monsters. Eliminating hindrances to the Ocean City's restoration is an important duty for you. Keep it up! Also, this is a reward and honor of your praiseworthy deed. Take it as a sign of Batavia's friendship. Ooh. Interesting. I wanna see Umag's provoke. Oh. So that's why I'm out of skill points. I maxed out provoke. Ooh, my bad. I don't know what I needed. Maybe it was Gradivus. Fuck. Or maybe it was Parry? Either way, I'm very unhappy with how expensive Provoke is now. It is now officially way too good. And expensive. Mayara really isn't doing that much damage still. But everyone else is nice. Let's add V3 along with Umag. Get ourselves a really defensive back line. V3 and Teostra do a good enough job with the elements. Let's try that again, why not? Oh boy, talk about limiting. I guess just V3 and Veil. Yeah, gross.
What is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back with some more Resident Evil 4 Remake gameplay for you. Before I get to it, I just want to say thank you for all the new subs that joined my channel. As I just recently got over 600
I need to check
subs.
the recording real quick.
Thank you very much. You guys are awesome. But now, let's get right into this. We're going to be talking about the handguns. And there's a lot of handguns in this game. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if there's a
This is
bad
their first
handgun
quest. They're
or
level
bad
fucking
gun
12.
Period, but we're going to be analyzing these guns as I have all the stats maxed out and seeing which of the handguns is superior. Now, to be honest with you, this is just opinionated.
Let's go for
Because
accuracy
I said
debuff.
right now, as I said, there's not a bad handgun in there. Every one of these guns fully maxed out can easily carry you even on the hardest difficulty. And each one of these guns is definitely there's
Yeah,
no
this is
bad
severely
like
limiting.
weapons or just gimmick weapons or just weapons that are really just like terrible. I think a lot of what makes this game so fun is, you know, see, if we put like 1,000 people in a room and they played this game and you had the fully maxed out handguns and you asked a poll like, where would you rank the handguns? I don't think you'd have I think a lot of answers would be very different because to me, I just feel like it comes down to personal preference, like handling. Some people might go for damage or style or just how the guns feel, just the rate of fire. There's just so many things that go into this stuff. Because me personally, what do I look for in a handgun? Obviously, I want a gun to do a lot of damage, but you also got to have that feel when you're wielding it. Because I've never been a crazy fan of a gun or a handgun that has crazy recoil, even if it might have crazy damage, but just being able to not control the gun and have the gun going all over the place. I like the handle.
The follow-up attack.
Accuracy to hit critical shots.
If it's an AoE attack,
combat in Resident 4, it's getting those staggers.
it'll all the pirates. Oh my god, that's huge.
Or maybe you might just get lucky, as you'll see a lot in this video, just blowing up people's heads, because when you get the guns maxed out, obviously each of these handguns has the exclusive ability, and I'm also going to include the weapons like the Matilda and the Red 9 with the stocks and the others that may be able to have the optical sights. But without further ado, let's get right into this. And we're going to first start with the SG-09R, first handgun you start with, and one design's a pretty solid, cool-looking handgun. It also has the laser sight and the special ability, which maxes out to the 5x critical hit rate, which is very powerful. As you'll see, this and this gun and another gun it has. And also got the Kendo on the side. Never forget your roots there. But yeah, you know, decent power, got decent ammo side, really big.
No strengths or weaknesses.
Fire, the precision too. Obviously, we have a lot of accuracy. On top of that, we also get that crit rate.
Really weak
so, once again,
falling asleep for some reason. That's absolutely worthless.
Use this thing right from the get-go. That gives you a great sign if you haven't played with a handgun that there's no real bad handgun. This is kind of my architect for what I want to use for a handgun right here. Great handles. It's easy to use. Obviously, having the laser sight makes it real good, but let's do. Everything's just getting further away. Ow! Ow!
Oh shit.
How is it all just getting further away? What does it mean?
No? It's alright.
Every problem I have with this mod is a goddamn compliment to the creator. It's so annoying.
No! Oh my god, this is so bad. You fucking... Sure, out of TP.
Nice.
Well then.
Oh my god. I never thought I would see you again. Lost Kingdom! We made it! My first time back here since
I'll go do the farmers.
Mushroom. Rewarded with a mushroom.
What? Why is she in the front? Okay.
This is the highest I've gotten. Why does it look weird? What are these glowing mushrooms? Okay. Gotta be floor. Gotta be floor. Thank you. We're making strides, making progress. Oh, wait, no. Oh. No! No! Please! 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 Anywhere! Anywhere! Oh my... Ah! Oh my god. My fake floors! I thought I found a skin! Now or never. Do or die. Go big! It's just like a moment. Go! Kick my ass. Alright. I'm not going on that thing again. No shot. Absolutely. My God. Awesome. You're bored? Punch it. Where did Snow go? Oh! Whoa! No! But I didn't think it would actually hurt. Nothing else has made sense. But it hurt!
Alright, just ignore those guys for a while then.
Are you serious? Oh!
Agatha's fine.
No! How was I supposed to know it hurt? It was the side that doesn't normally hurt! High school is outdated. It's impossible to save yourself from judgment. I know. Please don't dive off. Slam your dive plan. It's still almost impossible to save yourself. I can't even complain that it's bad map design because no one designed it. It's procedurally generated. So I just have to blame God. I don't know. Alright. Getting close. Close to our premise point. Oh, what the hell just happened? We got it. Bruce, we made it. Oh, crap, hard. Alright, we are in. One, four,
Bro, these guys are stupid. Well then, I guess they wouldn't know that there were 3 waves. But they're woefully underprepared now.
Yes! Yes! Rotate. Oh my god, we're in Bowser's Kingdom. Ruin doesn't exist. There's snow, or cloud. It's fine. We're almost in here. If I fall, I go. What is happening? Nothing makes sense. god. I got baited. I got oh my god. Mushroom Kingdom. There's a wall! No! No, 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 no! Stop. Why is there an invisible wall? Ah! It's a whole invisible platform.
2022.
Learn that. Use that. At the end. Yeah, apparently there's an impossible 90%. And of course, there's collisions or the walls.
Ignore them. We can't. But if they poison or something like that, that'd be really terrible. That's fine.
So I won. This is as far as you're supposed to be able to get. Probably not gonna work. We have one solid try.
Oh my goodness.
Well, you know what? Counts. I won! I got as far as you possibly can. And the mod creator counts that as a win. So I'll take that. That's a win.
Oh my god.
I'm proud of myself for making it all the way to the top. Even if it is impossible. I'm so proud of myself. We do need to beat Team Blood now because I want to see if there's
No!
What the hell? Yo! Ah! It's people! What's up, dude? Do it! That was like a fist fight. Awesome, man. Really cool. I did it! It counts! How about time? Unfortunately, I'm out of time. I can't stay. No, I did. Like, I mean, at the end, I said he goes assholes. Working, I would have.
Just go.
No, I gotta go though. I have an appointment. Doctor. Anyways, that's it.
Yes. Shirt, I need TP for blood return. I'm stupid.
Revolutions face a choice. Imagine you're from a small, economically unstable country without much international influence, and after weeks of protests,
Everything for a happy couple.
state with hundreds
This
of
is
people
important for their
demonstrating,
character
you've
arc.
just overthrown a court held power for decades. You promised them
SD3
jobs,
realized the power of love!
Now,
Fuck yeah!
the question is, what next? The military swears to, well, quote, protect the revolution, but you don't know how much you can trust them, and even though you worked with some extremist radicals to overthrow the dictator, you really rely on them now? On some pretty bad stuff. Your new regime needs money to survive, and all of these
Like,
other
do
rich
you
countries
we will
are
finally be able to ship out our food? My wife will...
breaking ties with
fuck.
any of these people.
My wife will finally be able to rest easy.
Revolution.
Trusted supporter truly powerful weapons. Of course the same might be said about you. By the way, that couple asked me to give you this. They said it might help you out on your adventures.
Decades of power, part of the Arab Spring. This is the revolution's dynamic.
Uh-oh. Oh wow. It's a maze, which means... Damn.
And if you like this kind of real world
No, never mind.
commentary stuff, then make sure you know on writing and word building course, which contains all of our writing word building discussions with way more depth, way more detail, in an easier to read reference context.
That's
And
super
good
wacky.
news, Volume 3 is coming at the end of the year, and it is the best volume yet. I'm so stoked with it so far. You guys have been picking the covers. I love it. They're gorgeous. Thank you so much. Anyways, link down below. Go get them. They're awesome. On the video. Part 1. Attendant Flame. In the words of Plutarch,
Oh, damn, that was lucrative. Of Venom again.
There are a storm of complex factors all coming together at once. You can watch my other video about that on the dictators. They need to be nurtured with a little kick to the warmth. They're so easily snuffed out. And that's because of what we
Hot
call the
diggity.
lines. Infighting, international support, and implementation. After overthrowing dictator Hosni Mubarak, Egypt found itself at a crossroads. The revolution had been led by labor unions, secular activists, military factions, and the Muslim Brotherhood. And while they all agreed that Mubarak needed to go down, ideological disagreements showed the cracks between them the moment the revolution was won. See, officially, Mubarak passed on power to the Supreme Council of the Egyptian Armed Forces, who went on to dissolve parliament, and the pinky promise definitely crossed my fingers and hope to die, swore that they would only hold on to power until things calm down. But then suddenly it's de facto martial law, and when the Constitutional Assembly is finally allowed together, the secular politicians clash with the growing Islamist faction, who disagree on whether this new state should be based on liberal human rights or the Quran. And the armed forces, well, they want to enshrine themselves as the ultimate executive authority in the Constitution, and when the elections are
with that
finally allowed to
distraction
take
out
place,
of the way,
it's
that
the
took an
Islamist
hour of
Muslim
gameplay.
Brotherhood who wins, with their president, Mohammed Morsi, taking power. Needless to say, chaos. The left-wing
Let's go to
labor
the
unions
fourth
clash
floor.
with conservatives, the secular with the Islamic, the Christians with the Muslims, and Morsi only lasts a couple of years before being replaced by the army's presidential candidate in 2014. Despite promising freedom of expression and end to police brutality, a stable democracy, and better working conditions, very few of these are at all realized because of elite infighting. And there's been democratic backsliding for some years now. Even though it's in a better place than it was before, it's still fallen short of a lot of those aims. The revolution did not ultimately succeed because the revolutionary
So, yeah,
masses failed to
everyone
keep
here's
united
back now, and I'm
continued
pretty
their
sure
push for change
the hippos
after
are
Mubarak's
back
resignation.
too.
Existing elites,
By now.
particularly the military, have become the biggest obstacle to change. Ideological disagreement is especially poisonous for revolutions, given revolutions tend to attract people of more radical ideologies, be it political extremism, religious extremism, or ethnic extremism. Stalin used the power struggle between Bolshevik leaders over smaller and smaller ideological issues to throttle the revolution and marginalize its competition until he ended up with autocratic power. In a transition period like revolution, people need to have faith in the institutions and political system like democracy that they're supposedly meant to hand over power to. But if they don't think that they can achieve their aims, what they revolted to do through that new system, even something like democracy, why would they give up power to it? You gotta remember that it's very easy for a democratically elected leader to slide into becoming a dictator. Disagreements breeds gridlock, gridlock breeds collapse, and collapse breeds chaos and war, and we're back on that cycle.
Get a
Half
strawberry
measures
over
and
these. I
civil
want to see this.
unrest once more. And often, old social, religious, and ethnic tensions are gonna bubble to the surface again. Revolutions are important forces in society, forcing change in static, often terrible systems, but beating the dictator is only the start. They've got a long way to go before they're really successful. I know it's a YA book, but I've always admired how The Hunger Games doesn't shy away from those post-revolution difficulties. Symbolically, perhaps, but it does acknowledge them. President Coin assures the world she will, pinky promise, cross my fingers, hope to die, only take power in her interim government until democratic transition is possible, right? The revolution, though, turns on itself pretty goddamn quickly. You know, Candace ends up having to kill her. People espouse these values, but when they want to do stuff, things like democracy can suddenly become an obstacle.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Democracy simply doesn't work.
But more than that, how do you deal with a significant faction of people who are going to want revenge on those who were in power? And not just the politicians, dictator, but the civilians aligned with them. Like, the Egyptian revolution wanted a public trial for Hosni Mubarak, but what about his supporters? And the districts publicly executed Snow. But Coin wanted to go further. She wanted to hold a new Hunger Games for the capital's children. There's revenge in that. The people who benefited from and perhaps supported Snow's regime. How far do the punishments and trials go? The representatives, their families, the people who profited from it, the children who happen to be benefiting? If revolutions are down ethnic lines, then they'll often end up targeting the people who happen to be the same demographic as those who were in power, even though they may not be directly responsible. But it's complicated because they benefited from it and it's not necessarily right for them to keep what they have. If it's down class lines, well, let's just say the phrase "eat the rich" is there for a reason. So when you're writing Revolution, you're going to want to figure out where these cracks start to appear, and importantly, you're going to have to figure out kind of one of the only three ways that they deal with it. Do they, one, compromise? Two,
Oh,
are
yeah.
they ousted? Or
It's
three, do
time
those
for the
aims
fourth
get
floor.
achieved? Counter-revolutions, like in 2014 ousting Morsi, are incredibly common. You know, these factions turn on each other in the struggle
It's
over
time
who
for
gets
a
to
boss
decide
fight.
what this new world will look like. Well, the Hunger Games, yeah, it's not the most complicated exploration of these issues. It does at least acknowledge them and how they can threaten revolutionary aims, easily slipping into
You met on the second floor, no? Glad to see you safe here. You're one of the luckier guilds. Lucky though, you are to survive thus far. Trespassing further into the labyrinth is forbidden. It's simply much too dangerous. This is far enough for those with idle curiosity. Only those with higher callings may go further. If you strive for greater than to see the labyrinth sights, then return to the Senatus and petition them for a letter of marque, if you wish, that is. It seems the exploration is going smoothly. I hear you had Kujura in the fourth basement. Eh? Oh, I refer to the young man in the flashy red outfit carrying a katana. Kujura is right. I'm afraid we won't be able to explore any further for the time being. The labyrinth is becoming choked with explorers in the depths of the first stratum. To correct that, I'm thinking of issuing a mission requesting the guilds to slay a certain monster. Just sit tight until it's made official, Let's go. Ah, will this mission fall to you then? I should explain it to you in detail. The Senatus has not been gathering explorers aimlessly. There is a purpose to it. There is something we hope you can claim for us in the undersea realm beyond the first stratum. To challenge those depths requires more than a journeyman's skill, else it would be a suicide run. Thus do we assign this ordeal to explorers to test their worthiness. See if you can beat the giant catfish Narmer, guardian of the 4th floor. The ideal outcome would be to defeat Narmer and see what lies beyond. Fortune go with you. Hello, and what is it you want today? My age? We're ahead of ourselves, aren't we? Find the city's ocean floor, and I'll tell you. What's with that look? Get gone with that long face. Off you go, shoo! I haven't time to waste, and I suspect you don't either.
An impressive cycle. This is kind of what happened with Stalin as well. Despite the revolution's aspirations of a democratic, liberal, socialist republic, ideological disagreements led Stalin to slowly concentrate power in himself, using the chaos of the post-revolution world to eliminate competition and undermine the role of the Soviets till it was just him. The ideological disagreement prevented the perhaps more popular other factions from working against him, and his rule was a simpler way out of the chaos. And while people in Russia rightly wanted revenge against the wealthy, Stalin also used that desire to persecute demographics he wanted marginalized, often against the aims of Lenin's original revolution. But it's not just ideological disagreement. The elite and powerful will often join a revolution in hopes of gaining something else, power or money or position, to stay within the circles of power when they know it's coming, and the Egyptian military can't be read this way. Egyptian history is a record of the army guarding the interests of the secular state and their own elite position in the system of power. The Supreme Council of the Armed Forces did not intend to be sidelined either, nor did it want to lose its self-ascribed role as the guarantor of constitutional legitimacy and security and be stripped of its economic privileges. In other words, the military could see the writing was on the wall for Hosni Mubarak and wanted to ensure that they weren't excluded from the circles of power. So, revolution.
I want to go back to my
this,
old
by the
team.
way, in George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and
I'll
Fire
save this,
series.
though.
Tywin Lannister doesn't revolt against the Mad King out of a sense of morality, justice, but because he's been alienated from the circles of Targaryen power and wants to get in on Robert's new regime. He knew that if he didn't help, then there was no chance of it, and taking King's Landing put him in
power
a
of this
powerful
team is the
position
fact that
to do
everyone
so.
has
When the
their
Soviet
own way of
Union fell,
dealing
Russian oligarchs
every
saw a
type of
huge
damage
opportunity to seize
imaginable.
state assets and make a ton of money. That's a huge
While
motivator.
having
They don't ever
superior
care
defenses.
for pesky things like human rights or the vision of the revolution.
Making it
It's
a
about
very
getting a better
versatile
position
team.
from a world falling apart. Chaos is a ladder. And the question is, these elites, the powerful, the rich, what happens when they don't get what they want? How does the revolution
That's
survive
brilliant.
without their support, without their money, without their men, without their resources? So don't just think about how elites might help the revolution happen, but where their interests might diverge and what that point of tension, how is that resolved? Because it can lead to a counter-revolution or an impotent government or another civil war. One detail I really like, and I think it's the Mandalorian, is that after the revolution, after the evil empire is overthrown, we get all these evil scientists and soldiers who have committed atrocities. What do you need to do with them? Well, supposedly they're sent to be rehabilitated and taught the error of their ways. But in reality, the rich and powerful basically tell them in secret, oh, we're just happy to have you on our side, on the side of the Republic. Rather than it being about justice like the revolution claimed, they instead bring them in, make money off them, put them in positions of power, and use those skills again, just from a slightly different
This person is clearly a
They
girl.
superficially support
Unless
the revolution,
I'm
but
wrong,
spoil its aims
but
when
like,
it comes down to the brass
Watch what
tacks.
happens when we
They
talk
don't
and begin
care
the
about
quest.
justice, just money and power.
Hello
Part
everyone.
two.
You here to see
International
me? Oh, you accepted my request.
Many revolutions
Thank you so much. Isn't it wonderful how a letter from the outside world made it here? I'm sorry, it's not really important, is it?
This comes in
Let me tell you about the
return for
letter.
trade guarantees,
A girl named
access to
Ellie wrote the
resources
letter.
for their own
She said she's
security
a
interests,
fisherman's
i.e.
daughter.
the entire
Wait,
Cold
what?
War in Korea, Vietnam, Angola, Afghanistan, Nicaragua, Mozambique, Ethiopia, Lebanon, and a myriad across South America. Over and over,
Okay, so
Western
it is a
powers
girl.
have stifled
Wait, so this
communist
is a guy?
revolutions with sanctions and blockades and sabotage,
I am-
preventing them from
I am
integrating
genuinely
the
confused
international
now.
community. I'm not saying we shouldn't sanction North Korea, but it is what has been happening for decades, and the
Now
United
what
States
will
has
you
been
tell him
strangling
means
Cuba
is
for a long
referring to
time. In the case of
This
North Korea,
person-
their economy was intimately reliant on aid from the Soviet Union, or after it fell, now China. See, revolutions put countries in really vulnerable positions. They're piss poor, disorganized, they don't have the institutions or logistics that the other regime might have had, and they're struggling not to slip back into chaos. And
There
in
you
that
go, we got
environment,
50%
other
off on the
countries
storage
can
fees
look
now,
decisions
which is
very
really important.
Following Libya's revolution at the
Now
same
it's
time
actually a
during
little bit
the
more
Arab
worth
Spring,
it to store
France sent oil
my
companies
weapons and
to
stuff.
secure oil reserves that they could not get access to under Muammar Gaddafi. French Foreign Minister at the time, Alain
What do you
Juppé,
mean
even
it
said it was,
cost
quote,
100?
fair and logical that those who supported the revolution would get access to its oil, pressing their claim.
I think
Without
I
the
need
support
to-
or not giving in to sometimes exorbitant demands, these revolutions might be left to die before they're even given a chance to see change. But it also comes across as giving up a lot of autonomy and future investment, and that does not reflect well on the government, especially if they perhaps promised to nationalize assets. Sometimes revolutionary support and weapons and manpower and money is to disrupt something, like a nuclear program or a new industry in the area, or to simply depose a regime they consider unfriendly, like
That's
what
a
happened
really
during the
boring
Cold
and
War.
simple
Once that
and easy
objective
enough
is
quest.
achieved, then they might pull
The
that
reward
manpower and
is
money
surprisingly good
missions,
though,
and
but
then
the XP
the
isn't.
revolution is left killing any momentum the revolution has towards its goals and taking away any security buffer that allows old
There you
powers
go.
and squabbles to sweep back in. Chaos. Part 3. Implementation. It's 1949. Mao has taken Beijing and proclaimed the People's Republic of China we know now today, and is pursuing new communist economic policies, focusing on peasant-led collectivized farms and decentralized communes to boost the economy. But it fails, utterly. These new policies prove more difficult to implement than he ever thought. China doesn't have the logistics to reorganize people and resources on this scale. It doesn't yield what Mao thought it would. China lacks the technology to really make it work, but it can't afford it because it's been in war for so long. And Mao refuses, as an ideologue, to let it go. And there's corruption at every level down the command chain, making it difficult to know just what's happening anyway. In the ironically named Great Leap Forward, millions of people starve to death in one of the largest man-made famines in history. People who make for good revolutionaries, for good generals, do not necessarily make for good peacetime leaders. So when world building, look for what we're going to call the implementation gap between the aims of the revolution and the problems they may not have considered. Do you have the tax money to do what you want? The votes? The bureaucracy? The logistical and infrastructure support? You can promise to raise the minimum wage, but what does that mean when your country is suddenly struck with hyperinflation? Or you want to raise taxes, but the rich people can just bribe their way out of that, and the judicial system that you're left with is too fractured to deal with that in the first place? Reorganizing society is hard, and that's why a lot of revolutions will try to do something big and ambitious and aspirational, and they will end up doing it pretty poorly. Of course, that just means that people look at the revolution and feel like it kind of failed them. Like, you can't do what you promised. If there's a massive gap between the aims and implementation, then it can lead to counter-revolution and throw the state into chaos once more. This is also something that's very difficult for, like, left-wing revolutions in particular. Like, a right-wing revolution, you can sell off state assets easy. That's destroying the state, and undoing what is a lot easier. Building up something new, logistically, is very complicated, especially if it hasn't been tested in place before. This is also why there's a tendency for revolutions to devolve into dictatorships rather than democracies. Democracies are complicated systems. They require a robust and sophisticated bureaucracy to work. I love democracy. If you don't have that, you risk poisoning democracy from the start. Military rule, on the other hand, is cheaper and logistically easier and often rises out of pre-existing structures you've already got.
Sure got it.
And the more you rely on hard power, the more entrenched those people and that way of doing things becomes. A newborn revolution still needs to keep the people who keep them in power happy. That can lead to some pretty toxic relationships with the military, with the church, with oligarchs, with the wealthy, with other countries even. The big difference is that stable democratic governments are self-sustaining, they're self-sufficient, they don't need to rely on oligarchs or the like to keep them going. At least you'd hope so. And you can actually say the same with like a stable monarchy or whatever. But the point is, how do you achieve what you set out to do when you're simultaneously having to privilege this other group? Pierce Brown's Red Rising series is a fantastic exploration of all this. Like, it has the main character, Darrow, lead a revolution against the oppressive
Very
system,
well. You're free to
but then he
proceed as
finds
you
himself
wish.
struggling with the complexities of governance. You know, over and
Look,
over, his
armor,
mistakes make
the
things
ancient one,
worse,
it
with
means
different
raging
factions
captures.
vying for
Do not
power,
fight it in
leading to
anything but keep
revolution
in
and
condition.
counter-revolution. But
May you
Brown
live
makes
long
a
enough
point
for our
of
paths
this.
to cross again.
Dictatorships
Goodbye.
are less complex systems. You know, it's easier for them to rise out of a revolution than democracy. Democracies need an informed and
Right, so
engaged
these guys
populace, and
suck.
if you corrode that, they
But
fall apart. Darrow
I'm
finds
actually
himself in
perfectly ready to
conflict
fight
with
them
the
already,
Senate,
so-
an allegedly democratic body, but clearly a flawed one. And you want to know a weird thing? In 2019, a poll found 59% of Russians felt the Soviet Union, quote, took care of ordinary people, and 66% regretted its dissolution. In 2012, 38% of Armenians said their country, quote, would always need a leader like Joseph Stalin. I spoke about this in previous videos, but people will idealize the past, even autocratic, undemocratic states with a terrible record of human rights abuses. I mean, we see this today with people like idealizing the 1950s America period, which was an awful period for, you know, women and people of color. This is because every regime is good for someone, and often more than you think. It's no surprise that Russians are more likely to think fondly of the USSR when it was a system which privileged Russian culture, language, and people. It's easy to look back fondly when you don't see or just don't care about the terrible things that other people or other cultures had to endure at that time. We come up with ways to justify it. We have a very different narrative, and oftentimes our identity, you know, is wrapped up in that narrative, and so we want to think positively of it. But all of this affects our relationship with the past regime. We're more likely to give it the benefit of the doubt, and it affects how we
let's get
see
Rocket
this
Engine.
revolution, because we see all the things that it's tearing down, and not just the new things that it's
Hell
building
yeah.
to do. However, this positive view of past regimes
This
also
makes
comes from
avoiding everyone so much easier.
post-Soviet
Not
countries
that I
often
need it
struggled in
anymore,
the wake
though.
of the revolutions and the USSR's dissolution. The Soviet Union. What you guys broke up? Yes, that's what we wanted you to think. The transition to a market economy often meant gutting social services and a downturn economically for a time, especially when it came to pension systems. See, the USSR had a sophisticated and very generous pension system that was a lot higher
Right,
and
their weakness is
probably
shock.
better than what we see today. So people
I
who
remember
benefited
correctly,
from
but
or worked for that were very attached
actually,
to
I think I should start with
rightfully
Prevent
so,
Order.
right? These new democratic liberal
You'll
governments
see
promised
soon.
better living standards,
Wait,
but
cross
weren't
slash,
always
really?
able to
Fuck,
deliver.
I need to do something
And
about
for a
that.
lot of people, it's kind of like, well, how good is it really? In some pretty awful cases, some radical groups will start to blame this decline of their quality of life on women or minorities, and that can lead to some pretty dangerous ideologies, i.e. fascism. But also, I want to point out that I know it's easy
Oh,
for us
really?
sitting here in
The
our
wrong
modern,
one.
liberal, democratic, wealthy societies to sit here and pontificate about the virtues of freedom of speech, democracy, and religion and stuff. But it's important to know that, like, the vast majority of people around the world just want to get by. They want food on the table and to feel safe. And when you think about why people don't always just revolt for this stuff, it's because of that. They value stability. And revolutions are inherently unstable things. People kind of identify with systems which they feel are just kind of okay to them, you know?
Oh, wow,
You can leverage
this guy's
all of those
dying quick.
sentiments to create some really interesting relationships in your world building. You know, the community who believed in the revolution then find themselves worse off. The people who kind of were fine with the autocratic regime but now find themselves kind of again destroyed and reminiscing about the past. The people who find themselves way better off than before. The people who didn't used to clash, but now, because of the revolution, are brought into conflict with each other. And also, we've talked in this video about revolutions as kind of forces for positive change, but that is not always true. Military juntas and coups and revolutions are sometimes for very bad, oppressive ideologies. It's easy for radical ideas to get slipped in with more reasonable justifications. We see this a lot with Islamic extremism mixed in with anti-colonial discourse. Revolutions are complicated. People are going to have an interesting time internalizing the now versus the before. And if you are going for a negative revolution, how do people think about the past? How do they memorialize it? You know, how do they feel about it? Because I think Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale is just a brilliant example of this. And forgive the TV show cover, I'm so sorry, I know this crime cannot be forgiven. Luke and I used to walk
Hot
together
damn.
sometimes along these streets. We used to talk about buying a house like one of these, an old big house, fixing it up. We would have a garden, swings for the children. We would have children, although we knew it wasn't too likely if we could ever afford it. It was something to talk about, a game for Sundays. Such freedom now seems
Yeah, why
almost
not?
pointless. So, you've just overthrown a brutal dictator. Things are on the up, but you have no money, you're not quite sure who you can trust to actually enforce your reforms, and cracks are starting to appear with your allies. You try to start new elections, but local governments are corrupt and only take orders from one of the other factions. Your allies are trying to seize property from the rich, but some of the wealthy on your side are protesting. The people who supplied your weapons. Who do you side with? You promise people
Right, although
jobs,
this
but you
is
don't have the money
a
to pay
different
them.
floor.
And now riots are
fine.
starting up, and you have to send in
Pretty much
forces to
floors
keep the peace.
really only have
International
one
delegations
type
are promising to support you in exchange for your oil
of
reserves, but you know
harvesting
it'll mean ousting your allies and handing over
thingy.
resources you promised you wouldn't before. Only if you
But
don't
it's
take power
only
now, it'll mean
when
bloodshed
dungeons
down
are
the line,
different,
and suddenly
like new
you
stuff.
look around and you become the very thing you swore to destroy.
Oh boy.
Sarah, that is deliciously fresh.
This is actually really terrible. Now I think V3 should go back to the top. Her defense is technically lower there, but it'll help that when Mara, Veil, and V3, the ones that normal attack the most and can actually deal the most damage with it, because let's be honest here, Iya getting a buff, getting an attack buff is not really the most useful thing in the world. So let's do that. Favoring a bit more offense at the cost of defense. I'd say it's a worthy trade-off.
This video is sponsored by Webull. We don't know what's going on in the world. Okay, I'm saying that loosely. I don't mean like every single one of us is unaware of the real issues or anything like that. But rather, due to the way we experience the world and the several biases that exist, the assumptions and judgments that we have sometimes just don't truly reflect reality. And hopefully this shows you a little bit about why that's the case. So let's start with a more fun question. And that's, on average, who has more sexual partners in a lifetime? Men or women?
What?
This is actually how a 2010 MIT computer science lecture started.
So today we're going to talk about sex.
For this question, we are only considering opposite sex partners, as in men sleeping with women and vice versa. Alright, internet, don't get mad, it's just to make the math easier. Now, before we answer this, let's just note that if we walk down the street asking people this question, we're probably going to get very polarized answers from people that are basing their answers on what they observe in reality, what they observe among their friend groups, and so on. But I'm sure many of you guys realize that if a man sleeps with a woman, then by default she has slept with him as well. So it should be even in terms of everyone's numbers are going up together. But we're going to get even more specific and account for the fact that there are slightly less women on Earth than men. So let's use graph theory to see how we can answer this question. And since I don't want to account for the billions of people on Earth, Let's analyze a hypothetical world where there's a total of 4 women and 5 men. Alright, so right now, no one has slept together, meaning the total sexual partners for both sides is 0. If 2 people sleep with each other, we represent that with a line or edge connecting them. So let's say these 2 have slept together, and that same man sleeps with another woman. Now he has a total of 2 partners, and each of those women has a total of 1, which keeps the totals in both categories equal. If these 2 get together, it adds 1 to each of their numbers, and still keeps the total the same. And no matter how many sexual encounters happen, our totals remain the same. In more technical terms, we're saying the sum of everyone's degree, aka their number of partners, will always be the same for both columns due to the reciprocal nature of 2 people sleeping together. For the men's side, if we take that total and divide it by the 5 men, we find the average number of sex partners that men have. Then we can do the same for the women, where we just divide by 4 instead. So in this scenario, women have on average more partners than men. But that's simply because there's less of them. I mean, the totals that we see here will always be the same. But if you have fewer people in one group, that group will have a higher average due to the smaller denominator. We can then take this a step further and divide the averages by each other, which tells us that women have exactly 1.25 times more partners than men. But this number is nothing more than the ratio of men to women.
But the purple
will
guys.
always be the case.
The man behind the
If you wanna
slaughter.
find how many more partners women have compared to men, you don't need to do any surveys. Rather, just divide the population of men by that of women, and you have your answer. So if we take the World Atlas population estimates and divide the population of men by women, this tells us that women have on average about 1.02 times more sexual partners than men. But again, this is only because there's less of them, so any further information is unnecessary in proving our point. Well, if we're making the wrong assumption that there are no same-sex partners. Thus, if you ever see a study saying there's some large difference between men and women in terms of sexual partners, that's pretty much only telling you that either there was a very non-representative sample, or more likely, people lie about their numbers when asked
Oh,
for
it
a
hits
survey.
everyone. Holy shit.
Now, in that same MIT lecture, the professor follows all
Yo.
this by saying that years ago, the Boston Globe released an
That's
article
way too
saying that
busted.
of the campuses they surveyed, on average, minority students studied with non-minority students more than the other way around, if that makes sense. To be fair, I couldn't find this article, maybe because it'd be a really old one, but I want to trust the MIT
Ignore what I
professor on
said a
this one because it
little
makes
while
for a good
ago
story.
about the
Anyways,
harvest
the article,
points,
as it's stated,
because I'm a big
is
fat liar.
100% true. And that's because by
Apparently.
definition, there are less minority students than non-minorities.
I know nothing, Jon
And when
Snow.
2 people study with each other, we can think about that as those 2 being connected by an edge, just like we saw before. Really, we can just think of this graph as representing study partners instead of sex partners,
the rocket
and the
engine's still
analysis
working.
stays the same. The totals are the same for both groups, but since there are fewer people in the left column, which we can consider the set of minority students, once we take the average after interviewing all of them, we find their average is higher,
They're weak
where
at
they
fisting.
study with non-minority students on average more than the other way around. Essentially, that study the Boston Globe did should have said that thing that's guaranteed to happen mathematically happened. But we all know that's not how people are going to interpret this. Then going back to dating, let's turn to Bergson's paradox so we can see a huge flaw in a very real stereotype. Now, I have talked about this in a much older video, so if you've seen it, you can skip here, but it just fits so well in this video I had to include it. Now, the stereotype we'll be looking at is good-looking people typically have bad personalities, which we've all heard before. So the way someone may develop this assumption is through their dating experiences. To see how this happens, we can make a plot of attractiveness from ugly to attractive versus personality, which we'll just quantify from mean to nice. Now, it's safe to say that most people will only date someone whose combination of personality and attractiveness exceeds some value. That means your potential pool of candidates lies above a diagonal, as in you might date someone who isn't super nice as long as they're really good looking. So if you've dated several people throughout that region, you automatically have a downward trend where people typically have a worse personality as they get more attractive. I mean, maybe it's the case that there's absolutely no trend regarding personality and looks, as in people are evenly distributed throughout this graph. But since you restrict your dating pool to that red section, you won't even notice those people outside of it. Your selection bias thus creates a false trend that isn't there. And if people who are the best looking with the best personality are maybe out of your league, all that happens is your perceived bias gets worse. This doesn't prove the stereotype is completely wrong, but but hopefully it instead just makes you think how there may be very hidden reasons for why we make the assumptions that we do. We can also see this paradox within SAT versus GPA scores at various colleges. Now, SAT and GPA are positively correlated, as those that have high GPAs typically do well on the SAT. So a plot of student scores could look like this, one that trends upwards. But for colleges, often the people scoring very low in both will be rejected. But unless it's a top tier school, the ones that are scoring very high may opt to go somewhere else. Thus the students who attend that school can have negatively correlated scores, even though that does not reflect how students are correlated as a whole. Of course, how colleges accept students isn't this simple. Even by just separating the lines, you can create a more positive trend. But either way, it will not match the actual trend of SAT versus GPA, and thus the selection bias creates a set of students that doesn't truly represent the population. Then
Wow,
on a
that
slightly
actually
different topic,
isn't
there's a famous story of a mathematician
that
who during
big of a
World
deal.
War II analyzed
The
planes that
damage
had
is
come
very
back from
negligible.
combat. Looking at bullet patterns, he had to determine where the best place was to put armor on those planes. Thinking logically and mathematically, he determined that the best place to put armor was where there were no bullet holes. And that's because these planes he was analyzing were the ones that had survived. So clearly those bullet holes we
Oh,
see
shit.
weren't fatal for the plane. If there was a spot on the plane that could take the entire thing down, then we wouldn't see any bullet holes there, since those planes would never come back. This is survivorship bias, or the logical error that comes up when you concentrate only on things that make it past the selection process. If you've ever seen an old house or building and found yourself saying, wow, architecture from back then was way more impressive than it is today, this is survivorship bias. Because remember, most buildings back then that were poorly built or just didn't look good have been torn down to make room for newer buildings. You're only seeing the ones that survived over the years, the ones we don't want to tear down. Or if you've ever heard people say music today is just not as good as music from decades ago, this is also survivorship bias. I mean, people might not like the new genres of today, which is fair, but also remember most of the bad songs that came out in the 70s, 80s, or whatever have faded away from people's memories and the radio. They aren't played anymore. However, the best of the best have, of course, stood the test of time and are still heard to this day. But that's mainly all you're hearing when it comes to older music. And this is a more personal example, but I've spent a lot of time tutoring kids around where I live, and I remember one day telling a coworker, wow, the teachers in this district are terrible. Because all these kids were telling me stories about their teachers being so bad. It took me a while to realize that, wait a minute, of course that's all I'm hearing. Students who have amazing teachers are much less likely to need that extra help and won't seek out a tutor, well, not as often. I, on the other hand, was kind of in my own reality, only dealing with a specific set of students who often did have these unique experiences. And whenever you hear a story of someone who, let's say, dropped out of school and became a huge success, just remember you're not hearing the stories of those who dropped out and never made it. So before you make any judgments based on your observations, be sure to think about the things you aren't observing. Then moving on, centuries ago Bayes' theorem was introduced to the world, a formula that allows us to make predictions and calculate probabilities based on already known information. And while most people use this formula just to complete their homework assignments, being a good Bayesian on a day-to-day basis and being able to make reasonable predictions that reflect reality requires being well informed about whatever it is that we're analyzing. Well, over a decade ago, MIT actually ran a study to see how well people could predict everyday things. The study I found to be interesting because they asked very vague questions, like given a person's 18 years old, how long are they going to live? So with no other information, what would your guess be? Well, lifespans follow close to a bell curve or normal distribution. So given nothing else but an age of 18, the math says to predict they'll live to about the average lifespan, or roughly 78 years old. Well, technically a little higher since they have already made it to 18. That is the best prediction according to Bayesian analysis. What if instead you're told a person is 90 years old? How old do you predict they'll live now? Well, in this case, the math says to predict they'll live to 94. Don't worry about why that number specifically, but just notice that since they have lived past the average, we obviously don't make as big of a leap. Still, predicting they'll live till next week is a bad prediction, because of all the people that make it to 90, many will live several more years. But guessing they'll live until like 115 isn't a well-informed prediction either, based on the data. And after asking this question to several people, researchers found that they do predict almost exactly what the optimal Bayesian predictions say to do, which isn't surprising. Here we can see the black dots represent people's guesses versus the solid black line, which is the mathematically optimal guess. So people are naturally good predictors here. That's because when it comes to lifespans, we're typically well informed about the numbers and data. But what about things that follow power law distributions, for example, that have long tail ends? Like if we made a plot of people's personal incomes, it would look something like this. As many people make very little and are bunched to the left of the median, while the right side encompasses a much wider range of incomes going out to the billions. So yeah, it has a very long tail end in this case. And we see the same distribution when
I think
plotting
it's
how
time
many
to quit
US
for
cities
now.
have a certain population, or how much movies taken at the box office, since most movies make very little, but some make a lot. See, if human heights for adult males, let's say, followed a power law distribution instead of a normal distribution, but both had the same average, then millions of us would be a few inches tall, and there'd also be someone taller than the Empire State
Oh,
Building.
yo, the repeater,
So
bro.
yes, these two curves make for much different realities, even though the averages would be the same. So when MIT researchers ask you to predict how much a movie will take in at the box office, given that it's already made $10 million, what do you guess now, with no information regarding how long the movie's been running? Well, the math says, given nothing else, multiply the number you're given by a constant value. And for this case with movies, that value is roughly 1.4. So if a movie has made 10 million so far, you guess it'll go to 14 million. That's what the math says to do. See, this is the difference between power law distributions and normal distributions. Before, we saw that for an 18-year-old, the optimal lifespan prediction was quite far from their current age. Before the 90-year-old, since they lived past the average especially, the jump was much smaller. But here for movies, we saw a fairly small jump at that 10 million figure, whereas when a movie makes more, we actually predict it to go even further. This is the result of having a long tail end in our distribution. They're much different scenarios, but it turns out people, again, tend to make nearly perfect predictions here, as we can see from the plot of how much a movie has made so far versus how much you expect it to make overall, where the dots are people's predictions, and the solid line is the optimal prediction. So even if people don't consciously know what distribution they're dealing with, they still tend to make reasonable predictions when it comes to something they're decently informed about. But what about when it comes to things that we're not so informed about? Like what if, God forbid, you discovered you had some form of cancer, and for that specific type, you find that half of the people with that disease die within 8 months, as in 8 months is the median. Well, that would definitely be really tough to hear, but it actually happened to a man named Stephen Gould back in 1982. When he found out about his disease, he became very dedicated to learning everything he could about it though. And upon further analysis, he found that although 8 months was the median, the amount of time people lived followed more of a power law distribution, as it was strongly right skewed. Since Gould was young and in good health, he found it was more likely he would be someone on the right side of the median, meaning he could live 8 months or 8 years or longer, as that's the implication of a long tail end. His newfound understanding of the distribution of numbers changed how he saw a situation. Had it followed a normal distribution with 8 months in the middle, then had he lived longer than the average, it would be like what we saw earlier. It means your time's probably up soon. But with a power law distribution, especially if you make it past the average, you could assume there's a good chance you'll live much longer, as that's a reasonable prediction. Just like a movie that's already made a lot can be expected to make much more. And Gould ended up living for another 20 years after his diagnosis. But now let's see how easy it is for us to become misinformed about what's really going on in the world. Because of what we're exposed to, what we experience, what we see and hear daily, that will skew our view of the world, making our predictions become very unreliable. See, we're often drawn to things that aren't super common, whether it's what we click on or the stories we want to tell. For example, someone who's been bitten by a snake will tell that story forever. People who win the lottery will be shown all over the internet. And if someone is killed by a shark tomorrow, that has a much higher chance of trending on social media compared to a story of someone who dies from cancer, unless they're famous. And yes, unfortunately, thousands of people die from cancer every day, so it wouldn't even be possible for us to see that all. But that's the point, because by default, we are commonly exposed to things that aren't common. Then amplify this with daily news and social media.
I need to make more use
and
of
our
blood
worldview just
return.
gets more and more
I worked
distorted,
hard to get
because
it.
we're seeing things that get clicks, not the things that proportionally represent our reality. In fact, about 2 decades ago, one study found that murder rates in the United States had decreased by 20% from 1990 to 1998. Yet the number of murder stories discussed on network newscasts during that time increased 600%. making it very hard for those who watch the daily news to maintain accurate assumptions about the world. To take this even further, there was a spike in stories about youth violence from the mid-1990s to 2001, when in reality there was a downtrend in the youth crime itself. But that didn't matter because public perception had already changed. A survey conducted during this time showed that adult Americans estimated that people under 18 committed nearly half of all violent crimes, when in reality it was about 13%. And maybe you've heard of people who are afraid to go outside because they watch the news a lot. Or maybe you know someone who will never go in the ocean because of that shark attack they saw online. Well, there's a name for all this, and it's the availability heuristic, which is a mental shortcut people make in which they base their decisions or evaluations of some topic on immediate examples that come to mind, not actual data. I mean, you can probably imagine someone arguing that the beaches aren't safe, naming all these specific examples of, let's say, shark attacks. But the fact that they're naming these specific cases kind of shows how rare the attacks are. But that's not the way our brains are going to see it. Those names that you see online or on the news make it feel more real to us. That's what can influence a lot of people's decisions more than percentages and statistics. That's what the availability heuristic really is. People like stories, not so much numbers. I mean, have you ever seen a politician or two do this? So if I show both Trump and Obama doing this, no one can get mad, right? Because should I both sides? No, I've never. Well, let's do it anyway. So here's both of them. In the middle, there's talks about healthcare.
You know, there's a framed letter that hangs in my office right now. Sent to me during the healthcare debate by a woman named Natoma Canfield.
Marjorie and Kevin Weir from South Carolina have a son, Monty, who suffers from spina bifida.
18 years ago, Natoma was diagnosed with cancer.
Washington Democrats promised families like the Weirs that if they liked their doctor, they could keep their doctor. But now, there is only one insurer left at the state exchange.
Even though she'd been cancer-free for more than a decade, her insurance company kept jacking up her rates year after year.
And I'm going to pause there because you guys get the idea. Now, regardless of what they say in the rest of their speeches, why are they bringing up these stories? Because, I mean, in a country of over 300 million people, you could probably find specific instances of anything to prove why your idea is good and or why the other person's idea is bad. It doesn't do much to show how your idea is going to help people of different needs, of different income levels, and so on. But that doesn't matter, because they're not talking to statisticians and economists. They're talking to the people of the country. And several of those people are going to respond to emotional, real examples, not just big numbers. It's those names that are going to get votes and donations. It does work quite well. And because of that availability heuristic, you can now think of
Natoma Canfield.
Or
Marjorie and Kevin Weir
when you go out to vote or when you debate someone on social media. That was a joke. People do not debate on social media. So to recap, cognitive biases, whether you realize it or not, have a huge impact on our thoughts and behavior. Sometimes making us fearful or anxious because of what we're bombarded with daily, rather than what actually makes sense. And because we're drawn to uncommon events, irrational fears along with misinformed predictions just become more and more common. Then when we're presented with data, simply knowing medians and averages sometimes just isn't enough. Even when the information is factually correct, it frequently does not tell the entire story. And even when we're presented with all the available information we can find, we forget about what's not being shown, meaning we sometimes only have partial truths that are skewing our assumptions. And from forgetting about the people who aren't appearing in our pool of dating candidates, to not understanding the underlying math, how reciprocal interactions like sex or studying affects averages within different groups, it might be fair to say that we don't know what's going on in the world. Now, before we end, I'll make one prediction, and that's, while you were watching this, for many of you, you were thinking about why the assumptions you already have are in fact correct, while opposing views are in fact wrong. This is called confirmation bias, where we have a tendency to interpret or recall information in ways that confirm our beliefs. I mean, just look at the study done decades ago, in which researchers gathered a large group of undergrads, some of which were for the death penalty and others who were against it.
Damn.
Everyone was then presented with the same academic studies, half of which stated that the death penalty lowers murder rates, while the other half contradicted that. After being presented with the same information, participants rate the quality of articles that confirm their beliefs higher than those that went against them. And when presented with articles that confirmed their beliefs, students were much more likely to accept things at face value, saying that the study was done well. But as soon as those exact same articles were shown to those with opposing views, those same students started looking more into the details and showed skepticism, as you can see here.
Take it.
All this supposedly fair study did was polarize several of the students, showing that for many of us, we only hear the things we want to hear, which just adds to the fact that maybe our assumptions just don't reflect reality.
Oh, I think I'm
For this
almost
video,
in
I
the
partnered with
quest.
the investing platform Webull, who I want to thank for making all this possible. Webull is a commission-free stock trading app designed for beginner and advanced traders and investors. On top of having absolutely no fees for buying or selling stocks, no maintenance fees, and no minimum deposit, Webull takes it further by offering in-depth stock market analytics and data all in one place. In the app, you have access to real-time market data that's updated every second. On the market page, you can see market index information, recent IPOs, earnings data, and more to help you understand trends in the market. If you go to your watch list page, you can search through any stocks, ETFs, or even cryptocurrencies that you want to keep an eye on. Then from here, you have access to past and present figures, order flow, future predictions, financial report information, and much more. Once you're ready to trade, they allow different order types, including market, stop, limit, and some more advanced ones. You can also see side-by-side comparisons of stock information, and if you don't have time to keep up with everything, you can set alerts that will tell you exactly what you want to know regarding stock market changes. And on top of all this, if you use the link below,
The red ones are still
you
just
can earn
super
a free
weak.
stock value
They're
of
only dangerous as long as the purple is still
and make an
alive.
initial deposit of
You guys
$100.
haven't seen it yet, but trust me,
So if
you
you want
don't
to start
want
trading
it.
commission-free right now, click the link below in the
You won't
description.
like what
With
happens
that, I'm going to end that video there. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe.
If you let them
Don't forget to
live.
follow me on Twitter and join the Facebook Facebook group for updates on everything. Hit the bell if you're not being notified, and I will see you all in the next video.
Jeez, look how much stuff we keep getting. This mod's drop rates sure are something. Nice. Now this team is absurdly powerful. Fuck yeah, let's fight. It's weak to all binding types. Wacky. Oh, I still haven't changed the cross slash. What? No. Okay, Taka. Let's go for a headbind. Fuck yeah. That'll prevent them from doing this again. Should have started with that, honestly. Ooh. Booyah. That guy's way weaker than I remember. Oops. I'm being called for dinner, so... I'm gonna be ending this video here. Yeah, look at these gains. Ito na.